In moments from now, Parliament will resume where there has been an uproar. But before that, we want to bring you the inside track on what happened during the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting held inside Parliament just about an hour back. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a key strategy session with NDA MPs focusing on the recent India-US trade deal. Addressing MPs, the Prime Minister said patience and perseverance had paid off despite criticism and stressed that the deal will boost manufacturing and improve quality production in India. He urged all NDA MPs to ensure full attendance in the House, actively participate in debates and reach out to the public to highlight the achievements of the union budget as well. Prime Minister Modi was felicitated by party members with chants of Jai Modi, Vande Mataram and Bharat Mata Ki Jai echoing in the meeting hall as party members congratulated the Prime Minister for securing the deal with US President Donald Trump. Earlier, the Prime Minister responded with a warm thank you after being congratulated by the media on the trade breakthrough.
नमस्ते प्रधानमंत्री जी, यूएस डील की शुभकामनाएं।
सर यूएस डील
को तो मैंने बता दिया कि ऐतिहासिक ट्रेड डील 39 डेवलप कंट्रीज के साथ जो डील हुए हैं वो इस चीज को दर्शाता है कि प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में आज जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज है सब लोग भारत के साथ तालमेल करके एक साथ काम करना चाहते हैं, पार्टनरशिप में काम करना चाहते हैं। इससे हमारे आम लोगों का जिंदगी में बहुत फायदा होने वाला है।
All right, so US being the latest country in terms of a trade deal reached by India, big gains have been promised. You had US President Donald Trump announcing it last night. You've had Prime Minister Modi being felicitated, as you can see on your screens there, during the NDA parliamentary meeting. We're going to get Aditya Rajkol live with us in moments from now to understand more about this trade deal. Aditya, a slew of trade deals, US being the biggest in that list after the EU deal. Tell us more about the big takeaways after it was announced. It's been over 12 hours since that happened.
Well, yes, certainly, Vedika. It's a big development in US-India ties. 20 years of strategic partnership. And finally, we have, after hectic parleys and negotiations, the US-India trade deal that was announced last night by the US President Donald Trump, and subsequently thanking the US President was Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, this morning, we had the Prime Minister speak at the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting inside the Parliament, where he, of course, said that people were criticizing India, people were criticizing the Prime Minister on the entire negotiations that were happening with the US on the trade deal, but the patience has paid off. He also spoke about how this will be beneficial to India when it comes to manufacturing. The manufacturing needs to improve, the better quality of products need to improve here in India. And he also spoke about how the changing world order, post-COVID, how the dynamics of the world order have completely changed. There have been wars also that have been fought in the last 3 to 4 years. Supply chains have been affected. Connectivity has been impacted as well. But India has spoken about strategic autonomy, and that seems to have paid off in the long run. In the last 1 year, there was a lot of volatility, twists and turns in the entire gamut of the negotiations on the US-India trade deal. But finally, it has resulted in the tariffs being slashed, Vedika, from 50% to 18%. And then the trade deal being announced. We'll have the nitty-gritties and the finer details, the technical points on the trade deal, perhaps in a bit from now. But here on Battleground, the big story is about the India-US trade deal finally being out in open, announced. We'll have the agreements will be signed in a few days from now. And the Prime Minister being felicitated by the BJP and the NDA leadership inside the Parliament. Perhaps we'll have a little more inside the Parliament. The government could speak a little more, and the Congress perhaps could take them to task on this deal itself.
We're going to come back to you in a moment from now, Aditya. Yes, there could be a discussion in Parliament over this as well. But before that, who are the warriors who made this possible? Let's start with the protagonist from the United States of America. Firstly, of course, it's Donald Trump, US President. He set the political will and signed off on that deal. He made the announcement as well. You have Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. He led diplomatic negotiations and secured consensus. You have Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Minister, drove trade talks and finalize tariff terms. Now from India, of course, it's the Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well provided leadership and push for strategic alignment. You have External Affairs Minister who visited the US of A as well, managed foreign policy and steered the negotiations. Piyush Goyal playing a critical role as well, Commerce Minister, hammered out the trade details and protected India's interests. And then you have Vinay Quatra, Indian ambassador to the US, coordinated on-ground diplomacy in Washington, D.C. So those are the big faces that you have. Now let's just talk about what India gains as well in terms of this deal. Now, tariff cut, US slashes import duty from 50% to 18%, making Indian goods cheaper. Then you talk about faster market access as well. Indian exports will reach American shelves more quickly. The export boost is another one where manufacturing and services in India get a big push abroad. We come to energy security next. India secures oil and gas from multiple sources and lower risk. Diversified energy supply shields India from global shocks. Reform space, stable trade gives India breathing room for domestic reforms. And the deal maker image, of course. Two big trade deals put India in the global spotlight and gives it the diplomatic edge as well, because stronger position in global talks. That's what even Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just said while speaking to people inside that NDA meeting. So those are the big takeaways, the long-term trust also being built in the India-US trade partnership. I have Aditya and Aishwarya joining me live. Aditya, coming back to you, what does this mean in terms of getting oil from the US now for India?
Well, that is the biggest contention, isn't it, Vedika? On the Russian oil point, there have been a lot of discussions. India had said that India believes in strategic autonomy.
Aditya, I will have to interrupt because we have to cut across live to Parliament.
डॉक्टर मेहता विश्रम कुलकर्णी जी।
माननीय सभापति महोदय, मैं सरकार का अभिनंदन करती हूं। उत्तर में ये साफ दिखाई दे रहा है कि यूपीआई भारत के बाहर भी 8 देशों में उपयोग में आ रहा है। और
Okay, we're going to cut back to Parliament once Lok Sabha also resumes, and we want to focus on what's happening there inside Parliament. But Aditya, coming back to you, apologies for interrupting you there. We were talking about US oil.
Russian oil has been the biggest bone of contention when it comes to the India-US trade deal. There were a lot of barbs, Vedika, in the last 10 months. We had Howard Lutnick, the US Commerce Secretary. We had Peter Navarro, a close aide of Donald Trump, taking barbs and pot shots at India when it comes to the Russian oil, saying that India was funding the entire war. But that seems to be behind us now. Hectic parleys and negotiations have resulted in this important US-India deal. But let's not forget, Vedika, it's important to also put into context the overall India game plan. One, India actually made it possible not just between the India and US trade deal. That is historic, and certainly we'll talk all day about it. But in the last 1 year, we have significantly been able to do India-UK trade deal. We've done India-New Zealand trade deal. We've done India-Oman trade deal. And finally, the mother of all deals, the India-EU trade deal with the 27-member bloc. And immediately after that, less than a week after that, we have now the US-India trade deal that has been announced. Overall, the tariffs have been reduced to 18% from 50%. And now we will see the nitty-gritties come out, what it means for the diversification of oil. India would be perhaps taking more Venezuelan oil and American oil instead of the Russian oil. What it means for the agriculture sector, the dairy sector, which has been completely a no-go area. And NDTV was the first to predict this. On Friday, we had said that the negotiations are at a final stage, at a closure, when we met top bureaucrats from Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Commerce. And now it's a big day, a win-win diplomacy for India and US. 20 years of bipartisan support and strategic partnership with India and US being taken to another level.
Yes.
But certainly some finer points, because this comes in the backdrop of some geopolitical developments taking shape, from Russia-Ukraine war to Israel-Hamas conflict and the Iran crisis as well.
Aditya, Aishwarya, do stay with me, because we want to also tell our viewers that US President Donald Trump had announced a major trade agreement with India, saying the US will cut tariffs on Indian goods to 18%, down from rates as high as 50% during recent tensions and the announcement that they had earlier made of 50% tariffs. Trump announced the deal on social media following a call with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, noting that India would now buy oil from the US and potentially even from Venezuela. Prime Minister Modi thanking Trump on social media, calling the deal beneficial. said cooperation between the world's two largest democracies will unlock opportunities for both nations. Through this agreement now, the reciprocal tariffs imposed on India have been lowered to 18% while securing breathing room for domestic reforms and securing export gains for Indian manufacturing and services. The announcement sparked a rally in Indian markets with stocks and the rupee strengthening on relief that the long-running tariff dispute could now be easing. Now, Vishnu Som also spoke with the US ambassador to India, Sergio Gore. Here's what they had said to each other in that conversation, followed by a lowdown by Kate Fisher from Washington.
Ambassador Gore, is this premised on India buying Venezuelan and American oil as a way of, India stopping the import of Russian oil?
I don't want to get into too many details. I'll let the trade negotiators announce those specific details. The one thing I will say is both the Prime Minister and the President have supported bringing this conflict in Russia and Ukraine to an end. And so that's something that both sides have been in agreement on over a long time. The Prime Minister wants to see peace over there also, as does the President. And so tonight is a night to celebrate that this deal is now behind us. To put it into perspective, I will share with you that the European Union and India took 19 years to negotiate the deal. And so, people were saying, why is this taking so long? It didn't take anywhere as close or as long as the European Union. So we're thrilled by that. And again, I will say that is because of the leadership of the Prime Minister and the President.
Oh, just a point of clarification. The tariffs have come down to 18%. So, in other words, the additional tariffs placed on India's import of Russian oil have also gone away. So the total tariffs right now stand at 18%. Is that right?
The total tariff will be 18%, and that will be finalized over the next few days. There's some items that need to get signed, but the total tariffs will be at 18%.
Aditya Rajkol still with us. Joining me now is Tamanna Inamdar, Managing Editor, NDTV Profit. Tamanna, thank you for joining me here on Breaking Ground. A couple of questions for you. Now, with the rupee strengthening, Tamanna, and bond yields falling, how sustainable is this market optimism after the deal announcement?
Yes, Vedika, that is a good point. And these are the factors that the market was working and waiting for. This is the bomb that the market needed. And this is the question we've been asking since this morning. The answer we're getting is that this is not just a one-day euphoria or celebration. This is the beginning of the next leg of the bull run. Because think of what was holding Indian markets back. The macroeconomic indicators were good. Company results this quarter were good. The only thing really holding investors back and market participants back was the lack of
Tamanna, I will have to interrupt you there. I apologize. Very fluid day today in terms of news. We're cutting across live to the Lok Sabha.
नहीं, ऐसे नहीं चलेगा। सभा की कार्यवाही 2 बजे तक स्थगित की जाती है।
Lok Sabha adjourned once again till 2 p.m. This is after the uproar that we're seeing over the trade deal in Parliament. Tamanna still with me. Aishwarya also with us. Aishwarya, in terms of the opposition, they've been criticizing the announcement of the deal. We've seen the uproar in Parliament. Yesterday, it was over Rahul Gandhi taking out that article, which the government claimed was unpublished and cannot be spoken about in Parliament. But today, it's on the trade deal.
That's right. Just a while back, I was speaking to Congress MP Manish Tiwari, and he categorically stated that why Parliament was not taken into consideration as far as the trade deal is concerned. What are the details of the US-India trade deal, specifically to the agriculture sector? The statement that has been made by the United States Agriculture Minister as to the agricultural products exports are concerned from US to India, how it will be impacted in the Indian agriculture sector is something that are the pressing demands that the opposition parties have been, pressing on since morning. And we saw these Congress MPs going to the bell of the House. They are demanding an intervention, an immediate statement from the government, although the sources had indicated to us in the government that Piyush Goyal might give a statement on the US-India trade deal very soon and will inform the Parliament about the developments. Remember, it is also, these opposition MPs who have been clearly slamming the government and stating that it's a complete surrender on the part of the government of India as far as why these decisions have been taken from Washington and being announced from Washington, rather not from Delhi. It is Congress MP Pramod Tiwari who went on to say that the important decisions from Delhi have now moved to Washington, be it Operation Sindoor ceasefire or the other decisions. Now, all have been made by the US president. Certainly, the government has to come out and open. And again, when we saw these ruckus, the parliamentarians went into the well of the House, and now again for another 1 hour, the Parliament.
All right. I believe JP Nadda has also spoken on the opposition. His claims are that the opposition is stalling a discussion on the trade deal in Parliament. Let's just listen in.
उन्होंने विस्तृत रूप से धन्यवाद देते हुए ट्रेड के बारे में जो भारत और अमेरिका के संबंध है उसकी चर्चा की है उस ट्वीट में। मैं यहाँ ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि मैं विपक्ष की हताशा, विपक्ष का फ्रस्ट्रेशन ये स्पष्ट मुझे दिखता है, जिन्हें अच्छाई में भी बुराई दिखने का एक तरीका बन गया है। मैं सरकार की तरफ से आपको ये आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि सरकार पूरी ट्रेड के बारे में, ऑल माइन्यूट डिटेल्स के बारे में सरकार आएगी और आपको बताएगी। और
All right, huge uproar in Parliament for a second time. Now it's adjourned till 2 o'clock is the latest. Aishwarya still with me. Aishwarya, you have the government, you have the BJP coming out and saying there's a deliberate attempt by the opposition not to hold a discussion on the trade deal. They're trying to stall it.
Well, now it's out and open. JP Nadda, the leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha, categorically stating that the government is ready to give out the details on the India-US trade deal, but it is the opposition which is trying to stall the entire Parliament, both in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. We are witnessing huge ruckus. The parliamentarians from the opposition benches have gathered in the well of the House, and they are not letting the Parliament function. Therefore, the reason perhaps the Lok Sabha has now been adjourned till 2 p.m. But the government is firm that they are ready to give out the details, but let the Parliament continues in a very smoother function. The also source-based information coming in from inside the Parliament is that the Lok Sabha Speaker had conducted a meeting with Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju and Congress Deputy Leader in the Lok Sabha Gaurav Gogoi, and there has been some sort of consensus that has been made, and from 2 p.m. we can expect a smoother session of Parliament that can go on. But it is Rahul Gandhi once again who had to speak on the presidential address, and whether the entire controversy that erupted over Mr. Narvane's book, that will be again raked up by Rahul Gandhi, or he will be speaking about US trade deal, is something that is that is very interesting to see. But certainly it is some sort of consensus that the sources have been indicating to us had been made between the opposition treasury benches. From 2 p.m. there could be a smoother session that can be seen in the Lok Sabha.
Aishwarya, do stay with me. We want to bring to our viewers some of the reactions that have been coming in since this morning on the trade deal from opposition leaders.
Needs India. Both are large economies, both have large populations. America cannot replace the supply chains from India easily, and any high tariff is actually a cost on the American consumer. But President Trump is not a conventional politician. He's very impulsive. He has said many things in the past. He has said the Indian economy is dead in the past, and he said that he does not need India. But now he has announced a trade deal where he supposedly has reduced the tariff to 18%. But there are many conditions which he seems to have laid, saying that India will not buy oil from Russia, India will not buy oil from Iran, both long-standing trading partners. I don't know how he can decide for a sovereign nation like India and whom India would trade with. Then he says India will start buying oil from his new colony, Venezuela. Then he also goes on to say that India will buy $500 billion worth of goods from the United States. I don't know how much.
सबसे पहले तो US इंडिया ट्रेड डील एक इम्पॉर्टेंट डील थी। ये इतने दिनों से रुकी हुई थी और इंडिया हाईएस्ट टैरिफ नेशन बन गया था। उसके बाद 18% पे लाए हैं, उसका मैं स्वागत करती हूँ। पर बाकी जो सारे पहलू हैं इस डील के, वो इंडिया के फेवर में है या नहीं, वो मैं जनता के विवेक पर छोड़ूंगी। जिस तरीके से हमने टैरिफ के ट्रेड बैरियर्स हमने ज़ीरो पे ले आए हैं, हमने ये अग्री कर दिया है, जो मैंने डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की ट्वीट से पढ़ा, क्योंकि हमारे देश की तरफ से ज़्यादा कोई जानकारी नहीं मिली है। वहाँ पे उन्होंने कहा है कि वेनेजुएलन वेनेजुएलन ऑयल खरीदेंगे, ईरानियन ऑयल खत्म करेंगे, रशियन ऑयल खत्म करेंगे, ये इंडिया ने एग्री किया है। फिर हम अपने मार्केट्स जो हैं, देश का जो मार्केट है, एग्रीकल्चर गुड्स एंड वेरियस अदर गुड्स, जो एग्रीकल्चर पे ही सबसे ज्यादा जोर था हमारा कि नहीं आने चाहिए, ट्रेड बैरियर्स लगे रहने चाहिए, वो भी हटा दिए गए हैं।
But don't you think it's a welcoming step? India and US trade deal had come down. The tariffs have come down to 18% from 20%.
Certainly, I welcome because of I know what the hardship our businessmen have gone through and what they are going through. I don't deny that this was much needed. But what I'm asking is, who will own up the responsibility for this all hardship? Why it happened? Who will look into? Ab ki baar Trump sarkar mera langutiya yaar, and now this happened. Foreign policy is something which is a very serious business. You should refrain yourself from the self-propaganda.
Does the Samajwadi Party also about the details of the trade deal?
Certainly, we have the right. Now, Parliament is in session.
So those are the reactions coming in from the opposition. All eyes will be on the Lok Sabha at 2 p.m. Will there be a discussion that will be allowed by the opposition amid that uproar remains to be answered. But before we get you more details and more voices on that big trade deal between India and the US, where do other countries stand now? Now that the tariff has been brought down for India, what about Brazil and China and the other countries? We know India's tariff now stands at 18%. Brazil is now at 50%. China remains at 37%. You have Canada at 35% as well. Then you have South Africa at 30%, Vietnam at 20%, European Union at 15%, Japan at 15%, and the United Kingdom at 10%. So that's how it spreads around the world in terms of tariffs. Going back to Tamanna. Tamanna, thank you for standing by. Apologies for cutting out and going to Parliament at that hour when we were in discussion. Now, I want to ask you, was this the biggest overhang for the Indian equity markets, Tamanna? What does this mean from the perspective of foreign investors, this big trade deal?
Yes, absolutely. This was the biggest overhang for equity markets. And you can see it in the way foreign investors were selling. Right now, even if foreign investors don't come back in droves, even if that selling stops, that's a positive for Indian markets. Now, why were they selling? They were selling for a couple of factors, and the rupee was a big part of it. With the rupee depreciating, any gains you would have even made in Indian markets, once you exit, you would have lost a lot of that steam. Secondly, the anti-AI trade has not yet played out in Indian markets. Indian markets were being looked at as a trading opportunity opposed to what you're seeing in the US markets, because we haven't really gone that far on the AI trade. That maybe will start developing now. Even the alternative to China looks good, because think of our tariffs at a much lower rate than China, which is why you will hope to see foreign investors coming back. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, at least they stop selling. Both perspectives are good for Indian markets.
So what does this then, Tamanna, mean for India's growth estimate? Does it get revised upward? Am I correct in saying that?
I would say India's growth estimate now is more believable rather than revised upwards. If you look at the budget which just concluded and some of the data there were a few question marks on how was the math really coming together and what the finance minister presented. Now it all makes sense. Even the gross market borrowing figure of over 17 lakh crore rupees, which had bond deals a little shaky and economists not too happy, now will probably come down. You could expect maybe in the fourth quarter a better GDP number than was earlier penciled in. So I wouldn't say India's growth estimates gets revised massively upwards, but yes, we now get a good chance to really complete the targets we've set for ourselves, and there could be a bit of an upside there once we know the details of the deal. That's important as well, because the amount that India is expected to buy from the US is several hundred times of what we currently do. So how does that pair out? That has to be seen. Where are our alternatives to Russian crude and at what prices? That still has to be seen before we can have a proper uptick to our GDP estimates.
That's good perspective. I also want to understand from you at this point, and this is a question most of the, the traders will want to know, the exporters will want to know, how quickly will Indian exporters, Tamanna, then feel the benefit of the tariffs dropping to 18%?
Oh, that will be immediate. In fact, some of the exporters that we spoke to, especially in the apparel exports in the textile industry, they were some of the worst hit. They were talking about how they've been on the phone all night. They've been getting calls from some of their clients in New York and other places in the United States from last night itself, who were waiting to buy. But of course, these tariffs were a big hindrance and a big barrier. So you will see that relief for exporters almost immediately, because the new tariffs, the reduced tariffs, come into place immediately. What will also be important is how we stack up relative to others. We are right now at a lower tariff than Bangladesh, than Vietnam, and of course significantly lower than China. This is a big advantage. Of course, you need to calculate transshipment costs, etc. But this is the time for Indian exporters to seize the moment.
All right. And my last question before I let you go, Tamanna, I know you have a very busy day today. You've spoken about textiles, but what sectors are likely to see the biggest gains? Is it going to be pharma, IT, textiles, manufacturing?
I would say all of the above. Pharma didn't really have any tariffs on them, but the fear of tariffs now go down. IT did not have any tariffs on them, but sentimentally this now becomes positive, and maybe irritants like lower H-1B visa caps or some US government agencies not really renewing their contracts with IT companies from India, all of those irritants go down. The big gainers, and you're seeing in how their stock prices are faring today, are textiles. Number one, textile exporters. Number two, I would say companies exporting frozen seafood products like shrimp exporters, they will do very well. This will be good for them. Chemical exporters, those who are exporting foods to America like basmati rice, etc., gems and jewelry, all of these aspects now get resolved, and these exporters will do the best. But I would say also watch out for others. If we are going to be spending some of that money we need to in the US on defense, do we get transfer of technology with that? Do we now deepen our partnership on some of these key areas like AI, semiconductor chips? That will be the true value of what we really get out of this deal.
Joining me there on that big story. We, of course, will get you all perspectives on it. We have some breaking news coming in at the moment, I believe. All right, Piyush Goyal is likely to speak in Parliament over the India-US trade deal. The government is expected to issue a statement, and that statement will be from the Commerce Minister. The question is, when will this happen? 2 o'clock is when the Lok Sabha will also resume. Remember, there's been a huge uproar in Parliament all morning over the trade deal. The opposition has some questions for the government. The top question being, why didn't the Prime Minister himself come out and make this announcement? Why was it from the US President Donald Trump? And there has been an uproar in Parliament ever since this morning. This morning, the NDA parliamentary meet also took place, where the Prime Minister was felicitated by the NDA members and leaders, and there were chants and there was a lot of praise for the Prime Minister for sealing the deal with Donald Trump at a time when the tariffs from the US were as high as 50%. But that's the latest we have for you. More details that we're expecting in terms of the US-India trade deal expected by Piyush Goyal in the House of the Lok Sabha, but that can take place only after 2 o'clock since the House has been adjourned till 2. Aishwarya joining me on the phone line. Aishwarya, expecting a statement from Piyush Goyal post 2 p.m.?
Well, that's right. It is in the Rajya Sabha, JP Nadda, Leader of the House, who had made it very clear that government is ready to make a statement and to have a discussion and to also give details regarding the India-US trade deal. But it should be opposition parties who should, make this parliament session more smoother and not to stall the parliament. It is most likely Union Minister for Commerce and Industry, Piyush Goyal, who is likely to make a statement in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha as far as the India-US trade deal is concerned. But the opposition here clearly stating that statement is not enough for them. They want more clarification on the agricultural products, the GM-based crops, which American agriculture minister had clearly
stated that they are going to export to India, and more details regarding other industries as well as to how this will impact the country. And there should be a discussion on the overall US-India trade deal. So certainly whether that will be permitted by the government or it will be a statement is something that remains to be seen. But yes, most likely Union Minister for Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal likely to give a statement in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha on the India-US trade deal.
Also, just bring us the inside track on that NDA parliamentary meeting, Aishwarya, where the Prime Minister has also said that he wants full attendance in the House and that people should go ahead from within the NDA and decode both the budget as well as the trade deal for people to understand it better, to understand the achievements of the government.
Well, that's right. This morning it was the NDA Parliamentary Party meeting, which was chaired by Prime Minister. In fact, Prime Minister addressed the NDA members and given a task to the members of the House that manufacturing units should be more focused in their constituencies. They should go out and tell about the trade deal that India has cracked and how it will benefit the common people of this country as well.
Aishwarya, just hold on. Shashi Tharoor has reacted to this big news as well. Let's just listen into the Congress leader.
कांग्रेस के सांसद शशि थरूर हैं। सर, अमेरिका ने टैरिफ कम कर दिया। आप लोग स्पष्टता की मांग क्यों कर रहे हैं सरकार से?
क्योंकि बिना स्पष्टता से हम क्या जानें कि क्या हो गया इसमें?
आशंका क्या है?
खुशी की बात है या नहीं है? अरे आशंका यह है कि जो ट्रम्प साहब ने कहा उनके ट्वीट पे, ये तो मोदी साहब ने नहीं कहा उनके ट्वीट पे, तो हम सिर्फ ट्वीट से क्या समझना चाहिए? ये जब एक पार्लियामेंट सेशन में है, सरकार को आके बताना नहीं चाहिए? जब ट्रम्प कहते हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर में ये करेगा, तो उसका मतलब क्या है कि हमारे किसानों के लिए क्या प्रोटेक्शन किया आपने? या अगर ट्रम्प साहब कह रहे हैं कि $500 बिलियन भारत खर्च करेंगे, तो हमारी पूरी इंपोर्ट बिल $700 बिलियन है। इसका मतलब क्या है कि दूसरे देशों के अलावा हम सारी चीजें अमेरिका से इंपोर्ट करेंगे? जानना चाहिए, बस यही है। जब स्पष्टता नहीं है तो हमको बता।
लेकिन ये क्या राहत की बात है कि 50% से 18% हो गया टैरिफ भारत के?
वो तो राहत की बात है, लेकिन अगर खुश होना है तो पूरी डिटेल्स की जानकारी चाहिए।
ठीक है, तो विस्तार से जानकारी दे सरकार। अमेरिका के साथ जो ट्रेड डील की बात हुई है, ये कहना शशि थरूर का, और इसी मांग को लेकर के कांग्रेस ने लोकसभा में हंगामा किया और कांग्रेस कह रही है कि सरकार विस्तार से ट्रेड डील के जो डिटेल्स हैं वो सदन को जानकारी दे। संसद भवन से
All right, so there you have it. All those reactions coming in from the opposition, criticizing the announcement from the President of United States of America, Donald Trump, instead of the Prime Minister as their stand. It should have been the Prime Minister of India making that announcement and giving out details on the deal.